Welcome back, everyone, to the Magnus Effect, the podcast where we talk to ambitious college students and understand how they're balancing their ambitions with the day-to-day college life. Guys, girls, to all my creatives out there, this episode is for you. This week, I've had the fortunate opportunity to be able to sit down and talk with Astha. If you know nothing about Asta, I want you to know that she is the epitome when it comes to people who have found a passion at the start of their lives and have pursued it even to this point where she's in college. Listen to her story, as it's all about having a great support system. It's all about finding ways to be creative, and it's all about believing in yourself and your passion all the way through. In this episode, you'll be able to hear her journey of what it was like to be not even a teenager going into the film industry and slowly working her way up towards finally being able to direct her own group of people. Listen throughout the episode as we also talk about her experiences as a filmmaker and what it's like to be in the film industry, especially with big production studios that she's worked with, including Marvel and Bridgerton. This is a shortened version of the full-length conversation, which will be dropping on Friday. So if you couldn't get enough of Astha throughout this episode, do not worry, as I got you. But without further ado, I'm so excited, and I hope you are too. Everyone, please welcome Astha. Astha, you went into the movie industry before you even hit your teenage years. What do I need to understand about your younger self to understand what drove you to achieve such a feat?
Oh my God, what a question. Okay, I feel like there's a lot. I mean, I tell this to everyone I meet. I feel like movies have always meant more to me as a kid than like any other thing. Like I was never the type of person who I was never the kid that you saw like playing with like, I don't know, Barbies or like cars or like I was outside or like I was always in front of a screen watching something. That's like all I did. Okay. And so as I started growing up, it was more about like, oh, these stories mean so much to me. I have so many stories. How can I tell them to other people? And I was like, movies. Like that is the one place I can do this. And so before I even knew it, I had like a camera in my hand and I was filming stuff and I was putting things together and coming up with like random like videos and like making my parents like sit and watch them, and my poor parents, they so nicely did. Yeah, and before I even realized, I was like, this is what I want to do, and ended up working in films. Yeah.
So you said you picked up like a camera at a young age, but when did you like really start creating? I'm sure like, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if 8-year-olds really can figure out how to use like an editing software or like, you know, handle a $1,500 camera that the parents might be scared of breaking.
Okay, so definitely when I say I picked up a camera, I'm talking about my mom's phone or like my dad's camcorder. Oh, we were a big camcorder house. So I was like running around with this camcorder. It was nothing professional at all. It was whatever I had on hand, and there was no editing. That in my head that was not a concept I had like learned when I was like 7. It was more just me filming clips and then iMovies and me best friends when I was 7. Okay, like it was just one clip attached to the next clip. There was no editing that was happening. Every clip would be like lit differently. It was the messiest thing you could probably ever imagine, but I started doing that so early on. That was like 7-year-old me was doing that, and so I realized like by the time I was like 9 that I can like do so much more. Like if I have like a continuous stream of like video, like lighting makes a difference, audio makes a difference. Like you can do so much with that, and instead of just like recording people being themselves, I could like have them do certain things that I want in the video. So then like getting that I guess perspective of like directing people started coming in. So it was definitely not that I started off with like being this master filmmaker. It was more of like me loving cameras and like recording people, and it turning into I have so many stories I want to tell, and like going into that.
When you say you have a lot of stories to tell, and also telling me that you were watching a lot of movies, what kind of stories were you actually telling? If you were essentially, if everything you were absorbing was just kind of movies or other people's films.
I think I'm a big people person. Like I love like I will talk to you for hours even if I don't know you. Like I love hearing people's stories. I love like talking about like random stories I've like gone through. I'm just a big people person. So like when I was little, um obviously I was consuming movies and those were like the stories that were being displayed to me. But like I would have instances where like I would be at school and like I don't know, my friend would like randomly like say she wants to play like I don't know, dodgeball or something, and then somebody gets like insanely hurt, and I would find that hilarious. I would think that would be the funniest thing that happened. Okay, and then I was like, you know what? I want to recreate this and like have this like on video forever. Cause like obviously at the time there's not like a camera running all the time. So then I would be like, guys, we're reenacting what happened at lunch today.
Oh
Cause
my God, you're telling people to like, hey, get kicked in the face again or something like that.
Exactly. I was like, you being hurt, so funny. I need that on video forever, so I have it. And so it wasn't like I was creating like crazy like stories with like 30,000 characters and like a insane setting. It was more of just like things happening around me that I thought were really entertaining or really fun, especially at such a young age. Obviously, I didn't have the concept of like great storytelling. As I grew older, I was like, there are some things that I want to like display to audiences and like talk about, and then that started like way later. But like initially the crux of it came from like random things happening daily that I just was like, I need this, like I need to tell mom this happened, or I need to tell my best friend this happened, and like you need to like recreate it for me so I can like take it and show them.
From what it sounds like, your parents it sounds like they were definitely like an essential role in like developing this curiosity you had within this space. So what kind of things did they do to like encourage you, and why was it that what kind of resources were they able to provide you with in order to kind of become and nurture this? Because the reason why I asked this is because I'm at 8 years old. Like, how do you even comprehend what a career is? Yeah. And you're telling, and you were mentioning to me that you really you from a young age you really figured out like this is what I want to do. So I'm assuming your parents played a big role in that, and I'm just curious like what their kind of outlook or what they kind of did for you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I could talk about them for that could be a whole other podcast. It's just my parents because they're very interesting people. But I think the biggest thing is like coming from a South Asian family, doing anything creative is like a whoa, this is breaking the stereotype. Like what's going on? Because like you're either like doctor, engineer, lawyer. Those are like the three things that are like always like they want you to do. I am blessed to have parents who like are very like I guess creative people themselves. Like my mom, she loves art. Like she's always painting. If she could paint forever. Like she loves like doing like random crafts and stuff. And my dad, he is probably the most supportive person in my life. Like the one thing that I grew up with is him telling me, if somebody says no to you, you have to go do it, and I will reward you for that. Cause I guess it was like his way of like giving me enough courage to do whatever I want and not caring about what other people say. And I think they understood that I'd always had a fascination with like cameras and like recording things and movies. Cause like I have stories like if like you come to like a family reunion, like if I was crying or something, they just had to put on a movie, and I'd like shut up like this, like in a snap of a finger. I would be sat in front of that TV, will not bother anyone for like the 2 hours the movie's going on. Do not need anybody to talk to me, do not need like anything, don't even need food. Like I will just sit in front of that TV and just like ignore everybody else. And so I feel like were very like understanding of that. And so when I did display this like urge of like picking up a camera and doing things with it, my dad was like the first person to be like, go do it. Like, you want to go film something, go do it. I don't care where it is, what you're doing. If you want to do it, it's all on you. Go for it. Like, there was never that like restrictiveness of like only focus on studies. Like, you have to get an A in all of your classes and then you can go do it. And I feel like getting that support from such a young age really, really played a crucial part in like me pursuing this in a long term. Like,
I feel like if I had like parents such as yours that were super encouraging about anything I did, I would feel scared to kind of go up to them and say like, hey, I don't know if this is for me. And I'm assuming as a supportive parent, you would kind of say, oh, it's okay, like if this isn't for you, you should try something else. Did you ever have that doubt? Did you ever have to face that kind of conversation with your father about like, hey, this isn't for me? And did he talk you out of it, or did he just keep saying, keep going at it? What was that kind of like?
There's a very particular moment that comes to my mind. So this was like, I guess like middle school, high school, like that time period where like, I guess like other family members were more like, oh, what are you thinking about like going into, like how, like what are you gonna do in college, like what are you kind of like going at? And initially I was fully like, yeah, I'm a film person, like that's all I can see myself doing is being behind the camera and like making movies. Like that's like for the longest time that's all I could see. And then this time period happened where everybody's like, I want to be like an astronaut, and I want to be like an engineer, and I want to be go into law, and like all of this stuff started happening. And obviously, again, Asian family, like the normal top 3 doctor, engineer, lawyer started coming in. And for a brief period I was very interested in forensic science, and that was like a side little thing that I loved. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna become a forensic scientist. Like randomly, I don't know what even like came over me. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And my dad, being the best dad I could ever ask for, was like, okay, if that's what you're feeling, go for it. In the back of his head, he knew this girl isn't gonna continue that at all. He knew I'm a film person. He knew I can't live without a camera. But I feel like he gave me like that support of like, even if I want to change and like I realize that later this isn't something that I want to do, I can, and he'll still be there. Like there was always that sense of like somebody at the end of the day, especially that being my dad, will be there. Like even my mom sometimes would be like, are you sure you want to do film? Like, are you sure you're going to be able to make a career out of it? My dad was like, I don't care. Like, I will be there. If like you ever need somebody to fall back on, I'm here. Like, don't even worry about it. So like there have been times when I've made decisions without like even thinking about like the consequences, because I knew dad's there. Like he's just there. Like I just don't have to think about anything. And so I feel like, and I think that a lot of that comes from like his background. Like he did a lot of things on his own. He left his house very early in his childhood. And he figured out a lot of things. And so a lot of it was trial and error. So he didn't like something, he would do something else. He didn't like something, he would do something else. And then he finally ended up at a place and like figuring out the one thing he did like doing. And so because of that, I feel like he's been very supportive of whatever I've like done or wanted to do.
I think that's a really powerful message, the way you brought that up. It's almost like you always need someone that you can rely on constantly so that you don't have to think about some of the actions that you do. I think what you said there was beautiful. And where was I going with this point? Did this ever feel like did you ever feel like there was a moment where it was almost like, from what it sounds like, you were never like burdened, right? Like with all the resources, I feel like what a lot of parents end up getting wrong is that the parents take an interest and they'll just force feed them with like, here's the classes, here's the coaching. Was that ever an issue with you also?
I think it was kind of the opposite. So immigrant parents, um, definitely don't like, both of them don't know anything about film. Like they just have no idea where to go with that. And so a lot of it was kind of more of like me figuring out what I wanted to do, and then I would present it and then being like, I think this is a good idea, and like I think I should do this, or I think I should take this class, or I think I can learn from this. And then them being like, okay, I feel like you've done enough research and you kind of know what's going on. Let's see if it works. Like, let's see if it benefits you or not. But I don't think I was ever like burdened by like them at any point. I would say rather it would be like me burdening myself, because I was like, I'm pursuing something so dangerous and so like very on like the polar opposite end of like whatever either of them are doing. And like I have to live up to their expectation no matter what. Like they literally like their expectations on the floor. Like they have zero expectation of me. Like they all they want is like me being happy and like just like fulfillment in life. Everything else, all the other expectations I've just set for myself. I was like, they've trusted me, and to like such an extent, they've like supported me, and to such an extent, I like, if this is my one passion, I have to get to at least some point where I can be like, here, like I did it, like all of the hard work finally paid off. But I don't think they've ever put any sort of pressure on me.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I mean, you've climbed up the ranks pretty fast. Now you've been a production director, a script supervisor, and now an assistant director, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit about like that journey between those three positions, how you like climbed your way up to the film industry?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so where do I even begin? Okay, I started making short films. I think actually making short films, like where I edited and where I figured out what like color grading was, maybe like in 8th grade. And then by like 9th, 10th grade, I was submitting those to like film festivals. And that's where I got my first exposure to people in the industry. Because I don't know anybody. Like I do not come from like a film background. Like I don't have anyone there. But that's where I kind of got like my first exposure to these kind of like people who've been in the industry. And then thankfully I am a people person, and like I can now say I'm pretty good at networking. And so a lot of entertainment, which I just want to put out there, is just networking. Like you just have to like not be afraid and like ask for help or opportunities if you know people, because usually either they know somebody or they themselves are on a project, or like I feel like entertainment is such like a, like there's just so many people involved that like people don't even realize. Like they just need people on set initially to like get coffee, right? So like even if you start off as like running coffee or like doing errands or something on set, you can like pretty easily build those connections and like get to a position where you want to get to. And so once I started competing at these festivals, getting to know more people, once I guess started getting recognized for the work I was putting out, I was able to get certain opportunities. Like I started out as a PA. I was a production assistant. I was like running around with coffees, asking people if they needed tape, if they wanted me to like mark a spot on the floor, like all the random other stuff that you have people do. And then I had like my first, I guess, break as an art designer at Lionsgate. And that's where I kind of was like, oh, okay, this is something else that goes on behind the scenes. Not something I'm a big fan of, so like maybe let's stray away from this. And then
Was Lionsgate a company, or was
Lionsgate
it like a film
is a production
festival?
house.
Production house, gotcha.
Yeah. And so from Lionsgate, I was able to meet Julie, who she's like godmother in this situation. But she basically introduced me to like Shonda and like Shonda Land and like the creative team at Netflix. And then I started working at Netflix on Bridgerton, which was like my first big like project. And this was like Bridgerton season 1. So this was like very, very early stages of Bridgerton. And that was like an insane start. And between that, between like season 1 and 2, I started working at Marvel as a script supervisor. And that obviously their company is like a whole other thing to even like bring up. But
Are these all like positions you got just by like knowing people, or did you ever have to apply to any of these?
I will say I've been very fortunate, and I've never had to apply for any of them. It's more just like because I've been working with certain people for so long, they trust me, they trust my work, they trust my work ethic. See, I feel like because it is such a people business, trust is a big thing. You cannot, like, if you break somebody's trust in film, they will not have you on set again. They won't have a meeting with you again. They will not trust you ever again. Because film is such like a time consuming project and art. And there's so many people involved in the making of that. Like there's like 300 people on like one project, and there's so many chains that are there, and like one person like breaking that chain messes up a lot of people. So I feel like a lot of it is like that's why like some directors, if you notice, will work with the same crew over and over again. They trust them, they know that they'll put out a good end result, and it's all about that. So I feel like most of the opportunities I've gotten is through building those connections, keeping them, and being a trustworthy person for those people.
How did you figure that out? Was it just like, I really want to work here, this is the closest person I know in the industry, or was it always calculated to begin with? It's like, yeah, I need to make like connections here.
I don't think I ever like forced myself to make certain connections. I think I believe in like things happening at the right time, at the right moment, and I've been at the right places, talking to the right people a lot of the times. But I will say you definitely do have to put yourself out there. You can't just stand in the corner and hope somebody's gonna come talk to you. That's just not how that works. But I think a lot of it is, if you think like with Julie, I was assisting her on a personal project she was doing, and I had been working with her at this point for about a year and a half. And I'd brought up to her one day that I think I want to go more into like directing and more into script work rather than doing design and like costuming and all of that. Because I'm not a very like artsy person in that sense. Like I don't know what colors look good together. I can't like describe how I want a set to be. Like there are other more qualified people to do that. What I can do is tell you if that frame looks good or if that angle of the camera looks good. And so I was telling her about this, and she was like, oh, there's this one opportunity I know about. They're looking for production designers and like ADs to be on set. And I'll like talk to them and see what I can do. And that's kind of how I got into that role. So I think it's a lot about like you expressing what you want to do while also telling the people that you do know that this is where you kind of want to go to. But I don't think I ever forced myself to make any like, this is very calculated, I have to talk to this person at this meeting, otherwise like it's not gonna work. Yeah.
I asked that because most people within like a tech background, which is a lot of people that I'm talking to on this podcast, even that's the nature of it, right? It's like I want to talk to this person who knows, who's really excelled in this space to help me out with this business. So I was curious if it was like different in the industry. But reflecting on that point also, you said one of your first experiences to like break into the industry was attending like these film festivals. And to me, as someone who's not really experienced within like film, I'm curious, why do people step away from creating their own films into an industry? Like, wouldn't you want to have creative control over, just developing things that you love? Why would people go into the industry to work?
I think that's a really good question. Obviously to create, I'll be very honest right now. It's a very competitive field to be in. One of the most competitive, if even. And to end up creating what you want to create and to get to where you have complete creative freedom and control over projects you're doing, you need the experience. You need to say you've worked with some people that are trusted in the industry for other people to trust you. Because a lot of it, like at the end of the day, I want to make a big movie. I need money for that. It's not going to just happen one day. Like, cameras take money, lights take money, editing, people, like it all, at the end of the day, it's a money making business, right? And like, even if I say I'm doing this for the art and to tell stories, they need funding. Like nothing's gonna happen if
people,
like
you gotta pay for equipment.
Like if I want a quality project out there, I'm gonna need to hire people who are very good in their fields. Like, I can't be sitting and color grading for 20 hours because I'm not good at that. Like, I need somebody who is, but I need to pay them obviously to be on my project. And producers at the end of the day aren't just going to be randomly giving out money to any person, because then every other person wants to make a film. Then you have 20,000 wannabe directors like me coming in front of them and being like, can you please produce my film? You have to, even if you don't want to, I guess the reality is work with a couple of companies initially to, I guess, get that stamp of approval of like, Marvel trusted me, or like Netflix trusted me on this project to do this, and it worked. And so now I'm creating this project of my own. Would you be willing to back it?
Is there one that's more important than the other? Like creating an award-winning film versus being with a top-of-the-line studio? Would you say there's one thing that has to be on your resume more than the other?
I don't think so. I think it's very much like, sometimes I would even say you don't need either. Sometimes all you need is like audience approval. Like, a lot of films will not win awards and will not be recognized by, or will not be backed by like top studios, but it'll be like an indie film with like not a lot of like, I guess, big backing. But once it is released, you'll see that the audience approves it. And I feel like at the end of the day, most directors, if not all, are kind of in this for the audience approval. The fact that their story that they're putting out reaches and connects with a person that they've never met, that they've never talked to, but they saw this piece of work and were like, I like this. I want to see more of this from this person. So sometimes it doesn't even matter. It's not about the awards and the like the big companies. It's more about like what people think of it. At least for me, from personally speaking, I think that's what I look forward to.
So in a game where the goal is to connect with as many people as possible, or create like a film that does the best in the box office, like, what do you think about your certain skill set like differentiates you from everyone else who wants to be like a director?
Whoa. Okay. I don't know if I've ever actually really sat down and thought about this. I think I will say because of how I've grown up and because of my life experiences, I have a very different outlook in how I want my films to be. Also, because I've been doing this for like so long, I feel like I've figured out what I do like and what I don't like, and like how I want certain things to be. Like, I already have this, like, I have a notebook of ideas that I like write down all of like my future film projects in. and I already have an idea of this film that I don't even know when it's gonna happen, because the budget for this would need to be like huge, but like it's like already there in this notebook, like fully scripted out and everything. And so I feel like I have a certain clarity that I like work with, which is very nice. And like in person, I'm a very different person, but on set, I'm a very different person. Really? Like it changes like this, because I'm a very like like I have certain images in my head that I need to be like on celluloid and on film, and so like if it doesn't happen the way I wanted to, I will make you do like 30,000 retakes. Like nobody's going home before I get my shot, before I get my scene. We are not compromising on my set. Like that's just not something that happens. I think another thing is I'm also very good at making sure the crew I'm working with is taken care of. Like that's always a priority. Like if people are burnt out, I will make sure there's like food, there's water. If somebody needs a break, we'll go on break for a week. We'll start shooting again like a week later. Like I never want somebody to be like dying on set, because then they're not doing their 100%, and then that's never good. Like I want everybody to be excited to be on the project and to be giving 100%, because I'm giving 100%. And so yeah, I feel like that's something that I pride myself with. So yeah,
I want to expand more on like your creative process. What I love the most, what you said, is that you know exactly what you want. And in researching for this like episode, I heard something from Steven Spielberg, which I'm assuming is one of the greats within the film world, right? His tips to other filmmakers was this one quote he said, where staying focused and obsessing with your idea when no one else believes in it is one of the most important things ever. So how do you kind of get yourself in a position where you know exactly what you want, especially with someone like yourself who has all these different ideas, you know? Maybe the person that was writing down that idea isn't the same person you are on set, you know? Like maybe I prepped for one of these interviews, but the person I am in this moment is a bit different and the vision's a bit different. How do you get yourself in that zone?
I think there's a lot of things that go into that. So there are certain like projects that I've written down, which they're completely full-fledged ideas. Like they're in, like when they come to my mind, I know everything that like needs to be done to make that a reality. And then there are some ideas that come to my mind which are just stray thoughts. Like it'll be like one sentence of like maybe half an idea, like completely underbaked, not even half cooked, like underbaked, okay? But I still write it all down. I think I'm a big like journal, always have a book with me type of person. Like that, I'm a very paper pencil type of person. And so in that moment when the idea does come, I write everything around it. So like how I'm feeling in that particular moment, what I'm like imagining as I'm like writing this idea down. Do I have like certain like inspirations that I'm like thinking of as this is happening? Because when I look back at it, I want to be in that mind frame again. I want to be in that same space, because I don't want that idea to disconnect. Like that's kind of like how I go about creating different stories. Yeah.
I love that bit, because when I'm journaling, I try to think about the same exact thing, like writing on paper what it is exactly, what that atmosphere kind of felt like. So the way that you're able to use words to understand where you're in that moment, do you think it's like just the way you're able to talk to yourself? Are you asking yourself different questions? Do you have like a framework of like how people can jot down like an exact moment? Are you like, you know, people usually ask like, how do you ask better questions? And it's just like, keep asking why. Like, is it that simple?
I think there's a couple of different things. For me, this is more personally speaking, so take what you want to, I would say, and take it with a grain of salt. But I definitely, there are 5 questions that if I'm like thinking of an idea, those 5 questions will also be written down on that page. It's how am I feeling while I'm currently writing this down? Is this idea feasible even with an unlimited budget? Like, let's say I have like $30 million or like $50 million or $100 million, no matter what the budget is. Are some of these like logistically even possible? Because sometimes I'm thinking of like things where like gravity will not make it happen. Like, even if I have all the technology in the world, that is just not possible to do. Third question is like, I always write down the setting I'm in. Like, no matter like if it's just on my desk, if I'm like out on the street, if like I'm in somebody else's house, like this, I feel like setting really plays a big part in like what you're thinking of and like the idea coming in to your mind, because like something triggered that idea. Like, the idea isn't just popping up in your head, and I feel like your atmosphere and your feelings play a big part in that. And then I always, if there's a person with me or if I'm interacting with something specifically, I always write that down. Like, maybe I'm with my best friend, maybe I'm with somebody new, maybe I'm with like a teacher, like whoever it is, like maybe it's a stranger. Maybe I'm at the airport and I like see 2 people walking by and like something comes to my head. I always write down where that inspiration is coming from. And then the last thing is, it's kind of like a part A and a part B kind of. Do I have people or equipment or like, I guess, the means necessary to work on this right now? Or is this like a later thing that we don't put all our time and energy to? Because I'm a person that gets very tunnel visioned very easily. Like, if there's an idea and I love it, like my first instinct is to like start doing it right now. Like, let's figure out the script, let's figure out actors, let's figure out everything. And then you realize that it's just not even possible. And then you've put in so much time and money and energy, and you have to just put it on the shelf and wait until you can go back to it. So if it's a project like that, now I just like leave it for later and focus on something that's more feasible right now. And part B of that is kind of like, I have this idea, is it already done? Like, I want the art and the stories I'm telling to be kind of unique. Like, I obviously have dreams of making like a movie like Mission Impossible some point in the future with like crazy action sequences and like random like gorgeous locations in like the middle of Europe, obviously. But that's kind of more like, I'll do that later when I have money for that and like when I have time to just do that. I feel like I have more of a priority of other stories that I want to like bring out before that, or other like things I want to try out in filmmaking that haven't been done. And so if it's like a normal psychological thriller idea that that's just come to my head, if something similar has been done within like the last 10 years, I'll kind of prioritize it less, just as in like, I can give it some time. Like, let's put out something people haven't seen right now, especially because I'm doing short films right now. I feel like more short films recently have gained more traction if they connect with people easily. So those are kind of like my typical go-to questions to see if like the idea I'm working with is even like feasible. Yeah,
That's interesting that you like qualify, disqualify like ideas, because you have to, right?
because I have so many.
You
Like
have so many,
in
yeah.
one day, like in the morning, like even this morning, like if I talk about this morning, okay, I was like in class and I saw like my professor like running into class, and I had an idea come from that, and it was kind of just like a piece of life kind of story, and very like coming of age-esque, and I wrote that down. But then like in the afternoon, I was getting like lunch with one of my friends, and she was telling me about something that was happening at home, and like one of her uncles, and he was such a character. Like she told me like everything that like happened, and like how he acts in certain situations and how he is with certain people in the family. And so that character was very interesting to me. And so I wrote like him down as like an inspiration to like base maybe another character off in the future. And then like randomly, like I was at home, and like one of my roommates broke like a bottle of like pasta sauce, and there was like glass everywhere and sauce everywhere. And I thought like, as like an outsider perspective, like from like an out of body kind of, like if I'm just looking at it from a third perspective, there's like so many people in the house, all of a sudden this glass breaks. It can be such a comedic moment in like so many different ways. You can do so much with it. You can play with that in so many different ways. And so I feel like I'm constantly thinking about this, and like I can get ideas out of like nothing sometimes. And so I have to quantify them somehow. And this is kind of like currently where I'm at, is like what's new and what's not, and what am I more like leaning towards pursuing versus something I can hold off till.
I love the excitement that you have when you like talk about all these different ideas. And I wanted to add like one of my favorite books right now. I come from like really being insecure about my interactions with people. So the world of self-help is my best friend. But there was this particular book that I really enjoyed and picked up. Maybe you're familiar with it. It's called A Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
I've definitely heard about it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about kind of like how you get your ideas, I remember some of the lessons that he taught in that book, which is like you can always zoom into interactions or zoom out to get ideas. And the way you zoomed in on your professor, the way that you said like the interaction like really inspired you, or like connecting the ideas with the breaking of the glass. I'm curious if you are able to control that curiosity at this point, if you're always just turning it up on like if you're like heightening your senses all the time to allow creativity to flow you. Is that something you control? Is that something you trained? How you kind of how do you think you got to the point where you're able to generate so many ideas?
I think it all came from me being in a place where I had no ideas. It all started with me just not being able to do anything creative.
So it's a skill.
So it's something I really had to like, for me, it didn't come that naturally. Like I know some people in my life who they're just creative people. Like at the end of the day, like they just have like this curiosity about things that like they've always had since they were a child. For me, it was kind of harder, like because as a child, like I used to like read books and like watch films. Those were like my two favorite things to do. I was getting like stories told to me rather than me coming up with the stories. That was kind of, it was always like going in and not going out until like way later. And in high school, especially during COVID, I hit like the biggest writer's block I've ever hit in my life. Like I just could not think of any ideas. For some reason, it was just like COVID. That's all that took up my brain. Like there was just nothing else going on. And I remember I was talking to my best friend. And she told me about how like we like something we used to do was like really analyze people in like specific situations. And it would be like at that point it was more of just like for like to make fun of people, or like to just like see like how certain people interact with each other after not seeing each other for a while. And it was like, oh, we went to this party, or it was homecoming, this person interacting with this person, or like this thing happening, and we would just be talking about it. And then I remember later that night I was like, I feel like I just need to pay attention to my surrounding more, and I could get so much out of just the interactions I have. Like I was a person who was very like hyper focused into like what I was doing in that moment. And so I'm not a very spatially aware person at all. Like like I even now I'm not. Like my friends, if they see somebody across the room, they'll be like, oh my god, look, it's that person. You will be like right here and I'll still be like, who's around me? Like I just like, it takes me a second to like figure out what's around me. And so after COVID, I started doing that more. Is just being like, I just need to sit and just look. Just pay attention to being present in the moment, and you can just get so much more out of that. Like the more I am present right now and not thinking about the past or the future, I'll get more of my stories. And so I feel like over time now I'm at a point where like, if now it's just become like a second nature. I don't really have to turn it on off. It'll just turn on or off like when I need it to. But a lot of it is just like picking up on things that can like turn into something later on.
That would be an interesting thought experiment. I'd love to like just see statistics behind. Like, I wonder if people like on a more frequent basis, if like the quieter people at like parties, like if there was a way to measure like creativity, I wonder like how much more, how much less they would be compared to like someone who's extroverted. You know, I want to like see like the ties between the twos. Are most directors introverted?
Let's say you have 10 directors. Out of the 10, 7 will be introverts. And then the 3 will be like the exception of like, they'll be very extroverted people. I think directors are like unique in that sense where like they have to live with their stories before they can live with people. Like that's I truly believe that. I feel like we're so constantly obsessed with our stories and like figuring out how we can tell those stories that our first priority is always like the thoughts in our minds rather than like the people that we're interacting with. So to be a director at like even if it's like minuscule, you have to like maybe have moments where you become introverted. Maybe you're an extroverted person. Like I would say I'm a very extroverted person. Like if I'm at a party, I'm talking to everyone. Like I'm not the person standing in the corner like not interacting with anyone. But I'll have my moments where like at night I will like close the room. Like I don't want anybody talking to me for at least like 3-4 hours, and I'm just with like my laptop or my notebook or even just like sitting, and I'll just think about the entire day or think about like the ideas I have, or like maybe I've watched something that I like at that moment was like, oh, I need to be with the people I'm around. And so I didn't pay attention to that, like whatever I was being shown. I'll go back and just think about it with myself, to I guess process. Yeah.
So talk to me about like some of the first films that you made. Like, did you have everything that you've been talking about so far in your mind when it comes to creating your ideas, this framework that beautiful framework that you had, just the habit that you have where you just kind of immerse yourself in your own world for 4 to 5 hours? Talk to me a little bit about the creation of your first film.
Okay, my first film, like where I truly will say it was like I put out something that I could show people, was like 8th grade. And nowhere close to like the system I like use right now. It was very much like kind of go with the flow sort of, because I was obviously like figuring it out for the first time myself. And it was like a 3 people set. It was me and the 2 actors. There was nobody else. Like I was directing it. I was the light person. I was the camera person. I was the moving everything around person. I did costumes. I did makeup. Like there was no other people
One-man
there.
team.
It was a one man. It was a one man show. But I think the one thing that hasn't changed from like then till like now is the clarity. For I don't know if it was like innately in me or like I've trained myself from a young age because I've consumed so many movies, so I just know what I like and what I don't. If there is a scene and I've like written it out, I just know how I want it to be on frame. Like there's just something about like if like the lighting looks wrong, if the actors look like they're in a weird position, I just somehow know. And so that hasn't changed, but everything else is like completely different. Like I'm much more easygoing with like the script. Like if the actors want to like improvise something because they think it'll be better, I trust them more. I'm like, okay, go for it. Let's just see how that goes. At first, it was like you have to stick to the script. Like I don't want anything like out of script at all. Um, Obviously now I have a team of 20 people who work for my projects. So I have to trust them enough to be like, okay, you are really good at what you do. This is my vision. I trust you enough that you can bring that vision to life. And so I have to let go of that little like I need to micromanage everything. And that was like a hard transition, but I feel like because it's happened so gradually, I've gotten more used to it. But that first film was rough. It was like one camera, and then I would like set it up for one angle, take it down, set it up for another angle, take it down. I was like running around with a mic everywhere. Editing was a nightmare. Editing was the biggest nightmare. I will say proudly, I hate editing. Like, I will do it if somebody really makes me do it. I hate it. Like, I just don't understand how people in post-production do the editing. Like, I literally salute them every time I see them because I was like, you're a hero because you make us look good, because there's just no way I could do that. Like, color grading, like, it takes so much effort, and like people who are really good at it, I really respect them. Even like sound editors, oh my god, like they make or break films, and the amount of hours they spend just like listening to the same thing over and over and over again just to make sure it like is smooth like throughout like the entire film is like crazy. But yeah, that first film, it was like we had gone up to like a random mountain in the middle of the wood, like the desert, and like there was cars passing by every 2 minutes, so like sound was disastrous. Like I don't even know what I was thinking. I didn't have like a windbreaker on it or anything, so it was like picking up every sound on the planet. Weather, did not even think I should consider that. Did not check weather. Started like there was like a dust storm in the middle of nowhere, so we had to like go sit in the car for 2 hours. Mind you, this is 8th grade, so our parents need to pick us up. Like I don't know what I was thinking. It was a rough mess. It was like a shit show, but I learned. That was the biggest thing. I learned so much. I wrote down all the mistakes I made, so then the next time I did something, I could improve. And that's like one thing I really believe in. If you want to do films or want to pursue something creative, you just need to start doing it at some point. You will not be able to learn otherwise. You can't just hope that you'll take a class one day and it'll teach you everything you need to know. Most things in the creative realm, you just have to start doing in order for you to know like how to do them.
So briefly, like between where you are now creating this super high production or much higher production compared to 8th grade, like how many films have you produced, and like briefly what was kind of like the story or idea you had for each one?
Okay, till date I have 6 short films I've done. The first 3 were closer together because I was just like trying to get more done just in order for them to be like short films I'd done. I'd realized later that I want more quality, and so I started taking more time. I started understanding why movies take like 8 months and 6 months. It's because you want a better product to be out. But I think behind each of them, initially it was very restrictive. It was like who was available,
or just like the story, like what was the story that you had in mind for
so
each film?
I guess the first like 2 were like purely coming of age. Like it was like 2 characters interacting in like a certain situation, and it was just talking about life. Like I was in 8th grade. There was so much drama around me in like middle school, as you know. Like there's just so much happening, and so I was just trying to capture all of that. Then I had my phase of like, I want to be a horror like filmmaker. Like I really want to do horror. Horror on low budget is one of the toughest things you can do, and I highly do not recommend do anything, but like it's very difficult to do because like you need to have good makeup and like good like costume and editing and all of that. But I still did it because at that point I did not know this. So my second two films were like more horror genre kind of. And then I really like once I understood what I kind of wanted to do, like my other projects were a little more like comprehensive. So I did a drama. That I had a lot of fun with that project. That was like my first film project that won an award anywhere. I got a lot of confidence from that project. It was also the first time I took such a long time making something. It was I spent almost like 4 months on it, which at that point was a lot for me. Like otherwise my short films were like in a month you're done with the entire thing. Like I'm not spending that much time because also I was a high school student. I didn't have time like just all the time. Plus I'd started working in high school at these companies. So I was also doing company work. So just having time to focus on my individual projects was like a lot. But yeah, I think I went from drama and then I did like a psychological thriller after that, which was again, I had so much fun doing that. I realized after that that's kind of like something I definitely want to do more of. Like I love doing psychological thrillers. And then my most recent one, which hasn't been released yet, but is soon going to be released, is something new. I kind of wanted to challenge myself. I hadn't ever done anything like this. Is a Western. So I had to like focus a lot more on like the setting and like the atmosphere and like costume and like the actors and stuff. So that was also another fun project. But yeah, those have been kind of where
Did you have
I've
a favorite out of those? And if so, like, what's like the one-liner description that would read for like what the film is about?
I think the psychological thriller one, it's probably not my best work, but it's still probably one of my favorites because of the idea. And like every time I show it to people get thrown off by it, which I just kind of like seeing everybody's reaction to it. I think, yeah, that's probably my favorite project. How would I describe it? Don't trust everyone you see. Even salt sometimes looks like sugar.
Where was that idea coming from?
I feel like it's a lot. I feel like it was the initial idea came from a story one of my friends told me about a personal experience she had with this one guy she had met, and they got close like very quickly, and our friend group started trusting him like very easily as well. And we soon realized he wasn't like the best person to be around. Like he'd done some things that we were not like fans of. And this was all in high school, but I think that's where like the stem of that idea kind of came from. Yeah.
And this was the one you said that won an award, or
This one's the one right after.
right after?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit about like film festivals. Like,
they're my favorite things.
They?
Okay. Yeah. I feel like film festivals are underrated. Even in the film community, sometimes I just don't hear more people talking about them. I feel like even if you're not making films, I just want people to go attend film festivals. If like that's the one thing anybody gets out, go. You'll have so much fun because you'll get exposed to so many different types of storytelling and so many like new creative people that you've never heard of. Because obviously we hear about like the commercial successes that happen every year, like the Academy Awards, all the films that have won there, and like the short films that have maybe like won at like New York Film Festival, Sundance, Toronto Film Festival. You hear those, but go to your local film festival. Like go to San Francisco Film Festival. You'll have so much fun because you'll meet local talent and you'll see like stories from your local area that is like, it's one of the best experiences personally. From a more technical perspective, I kind of went into it blindly. I remember I was kind of like, okay, this is probably something I've created, which I wouldn't mind people seeing. So I kind of just was like, let's give it a shot. If nothing happens, nothing happens. We'll work on it more. We'll see. But I submitted to LA Film Festival, and
For someone who doesn't know like film festival at all, is LA like where does it kind of land? You know,
it's kind of like one of the first festivals that you kind of enter to kind of get your name more like out there. Like I had done film festivals like in Arizona, which were like local film festivals that only like Arizona people know about. And I had gotten some recognition there. And so I was like, okay, I think we can do more. And so I kind of submitted to LA and got rejected. Was not accepted. And I was like, okay, it's okay. Was not thinking I was gonna get anything from it either. And I also submitted to New York Film Festival. Same project. A couple of months later, New York Film Festival accepted it. And I was like, whoa, was not expecting that at all because LA rejected it. So I was like, of course New York's going to reject it. There's no way they're going to take it.
Is New York better than LA?
I'm not going to say anything. I'm biased because New York accepted my film. And so I have a soft spot for them. I think they're both on the same, like technically speaking, they're all on the same level. I think New York is more known. There's a lot more like hype around New York compared to LA, but LA is more creative, I would say. New York is more commercial, at least in my opinion. But I got accepted there, flew out, craziest experience of my life. Imagine like a 9th grader flying out to New York and like just being introduced to this world of like chaos, and met a lot of people, learned a lot. I guess also like got that confidence that I could like be here with these people and like something I've created let me be here with these people. So there's something I'm doing that's right. And then the year after I submitted to Sundance, which was a reach. Sundance for me was like the epitome of film festivals at the time.
Is that like where everyone else tries to get into?
I mean, I feel like within the film community, Sundance is very known. Like everybody knows about Sundance. Everybody either tries to attend it or goes or wants their film to like win Sundance.
So they're like the big dogs.
Sundance is big. And I submitted there and got accepted at Sundance. And I was like, holy shit. This was my moment
the
where
same film that you submitted to New York?
No, this was like my next one. Because I did New York and I was like, okay, I have the confidence to do something bigger now. And so I did something bigger and then I submitted here. I got like very lucky to like go to Sundance. Insane experience. This is probably like when I was like, Dad, we're here. We're doing something. Trust me, we're gonna get somewhere. So went to Sundance. This is where I probably met some of the most talented people I've ever encountered in my life. Like everybody you talk to at Sundance is passionate about what they're doing. Like nobody's just there because they're there. Like everybody's there for a reason, and that I think just motivates you to do like even better. This is also where I made a lot of connections, and it's where I started like stepping foot into the industry. Like I got my first gig as a PA through Sundance. I guess like understood Sundance is very unique in the fact that like audiences are able to tell you face to face if they like your film or if they don't like your film. And I loved that about Sundance because like I want you to tell me if you like what I'm making or if you don't like what I'm making, because then I'll do something differently. I'll get my stuff to connect with you differently. And so having my film there and then people telling me, I like this, but I didn't like this. I connected here, but I didn't connect here, was like insane, and I loved it. And so it film festivals will always hold a very like meaningful place in my heart because it's where I started everything. And it's one of like the most beneficial thing at least a beginning filmmaker can do. Even if you're like, let's say, not making films, just going to them will expose you to a lot of like different parts of the film industry. Because like when I first started going, I didn't even realize there were so many sectors within like making a film. Like I didn't realize like there was a whole other category like just there for like sound design, like just specifically. Like that was not something that's like, I knew what a background score was and that was my extent, and I was like, okay, cool, there's a background score. I learned like very specific, like there are sound moderators on films, there are like sound historians on films, there are like specific designers who work with specific instruments who like help like create what I've been calling a background score. And it's just like you learn so much. And like as somebody who wants to go into film, that's like one thing I would tell people: just go to film festivals, any one that you can go to, go.
It's honestly something I take for granted. Like when I go into the theater, see a movie, and I never think about how much CGI went into it, how much sound design. When I first learned that there were sound designers to begin with, I felt like that broke the fourth wall for me. I was like, that's crazy. This robot sound I'm hearing is just a celery cracking. Like it's the most ridiculous thing. But okay, you see your film at this super big festival. What's going on in your mind? You see it on the big screen. Everyone's watching. How do you describe what you were thinking at that time? It must have been 13 years of hard work, and it got you to that moment. Like,
I was a nervous wreck. I was so, I mean, oh my God. Because the only other people before that who'd seen like my stuff was like family members, best friends, and like the local theater group. Like that's all, like those are like the only people exposed to that. And here I was at a film festival where they're premiering movies like Elvis and like Mission Impossible. Like these movies are getting premiered here, and there are so many people there to like see new upcoming artists and like filmmakers. And like I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And then as soon as like I still remember, as soon as like my film started playing for the first time on like a big screen, I was like, I'm going to die. Like I think I'm gonna pass out right now. There's no way this is real. Cause like that moment had been like in the making for so long. So like finally it like coming to my face like at this festival was like insane. I think a lot of it was just me absorbing the energy of like everything around that was going on. Because for a second I was just numb. I was like, this feels like an out of body experience. I just don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I was like, you know what, I just need to breathe, and I just need to take everything in. So I mean, I was like overwhelmed, I was nervous, I was excited. Like I think the biggest thing was excitement. I was like, wow, it's finally happening. You did it. And it then I was like scared because I was like, this is being so well received. Now, like, if the next thing I do is not this well received, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. So I was like scared for a second. But I think overall it was just a very like exciting moment. I was like, that was the time when I was like, okay, I could see this being like something I'm good at. Like I was like, okay, I did it. Yeah.
so really successful people, right? Though, like even though like the world of business, they usually talk about like, once they're in a position where like they're like the shit, best blank in the world, like they always reflect back on like how they started out and saying how they really enjoyed the process and how it's different now. Not to say like this is your best. I'm sure you'll you'll eventually hit the movie theaters to the point where I'm watching your film on the big screen. But have you had that moment yet already where it's like you reflect back on that very first film, that young 8th grade Asta, and saying like, wow, the things I went through in that period were so much fun that I kind of miss it? Or is it still a super big grind for you? You just get better toys to play with?
I think because I'm so ambitious and because I have such like big projects planned, like for me this doesn't feel like I've reached like a peak yet. Like I still have things I want to like get to. So I'm never like reminiscing about like me in 8th grade doing this. Obviously I will say though, whenever I do like think about it and remember those days, it's always fun to like go back, because I was like, I was so confused, I was so dumb, I made the craziest mistakes, like what was I even thinking with that? So it's always fun to like reflect on it. But I mean, like even like right now I'm getting like to work with like such cool cameras and stuff, and like the bigger the production sets that I'm on, like the crazier things I get to see. So it's all still, I guess, like very like new, but that's like one thing I've also, I think, tricked my brain into thinking, is treating everything like as if like it's still new. I feel like that just motivates me more. Like if I start thinking, oh, it's just a camera, and then at the end of the day, I've been around cameras since I was 8. I'm gonna stop like finding them interesting. Like if I'm like, oh, but this camera has like this newer lens, I could do so much with it. There's like a whole other box of opportunities and a whole other box of like ideas that I can like mess around with. So I feel like I'm still in that phase of like, oh my god, I'm like finally doing the things I want to, and like the more that I'm getting to do them, the more I'm like, oh my god, the next thing is this and the next thing is this. So I don't think I'm at that point where I'm like, I've gotten to where I wanted to be. Yeah.
I love that. So taking like a huge step back to kind of like what you said at the very beginning, I'm curious, with all this ambition, with so much certainty of like this is a path, you know, I have to ask this question because, you know, we met here on campus. Like, why are you in college? What is this?
I've been asked this question so many times. Oh my god. Okay. I think it's a lot of personal choice. It's a lot of family. College is something I've always wanted. Like I knew from like high school, I was like, I want a degree. Like even though I'm going into creative field, I at least want my bachelor's. And that was kind of like it was a very personal choice, because I had the choice of like in high school, I was already working with companies. I could have just continued working with them. I did not need to come to college, but it was a very personal thing. And then my grandparents played a huge role. I love them. Like they're more my parents than my parents. Like my grandparents are like the first people I call when something happens, before my mom and dad. Like they raised me in India until I was like 10, and so like they're everything. They're like my world. And both of them have college degrees. Like, and my grandpa, he is a chartered accountant, so he like has his master's and like he has his PhD. Like he has like a layer of degrees. But surprisingly, neither of my parents do. So there was like this weird like gap in like where my grandparents are like college educated, but my parents aren't. They both started college, never finished it. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing this for my grandpa. Like I'm getting this degree for my grandpa. I'm doing this for my parents because I want them to be able to tell people that their daughter has at least a bachelor's. And then I'm doing this for myself. Because, like, yeah, like, I could have just gone into work. But a lot of it is all the experiences that college gives you. Like, living on your own completely. Like, experiencing, like, random things, like, I don't know, like at like 2 a.m. I think what people forget is like we focus so much on the academic side of college. I don't think we realize that there is a big social part of college. It helps a person grow. It helps a person develop. I feel like these are such fundamental years from when you're 18 to like 22 where you need that social, I guess, those interactions, those experiences to build up your confidence to when you do get a job or when you like go live on like by yourself alone in like a random city like after college. So I feel like a lot of it, like even this is like my dad and I talked about this before me coming to Berkeley, was a lot of it is like he wanted me to like have that experience and like make those choices by myself and like be my own person and figure out what I stand for. And so that's kind of the main reason. There wasn't another big reason, but yeah.
I'd imagine it benefits you a lot also, right? As like a very
Mhm.
creative person, you get to kind of experience other people's lives and like
Yeah,
really understand them
exactly.
and draw inspiration from that as
Mhm.
well. Um, so in a sense, I guess, do you think that's like an unfair advantage within your industry?
I don't think so. I think it's more of an advantage,
Mhm.
personally speaking. Uh, I have been lucky enough to be in the industry at such a young age. My colleagues are 30 plus year olds. Like I like when I'm like working with people, most of my teams that I'm working with are like people with families that are like settled down. Like I don't have any coworker that I've worked with that is my age. So I feel like it's an advantage because whenever they ask me about like an opinion, I'll have a very different outlook. Like I'll be able to like add something so new that they're not even thinking about it. Or because I'm surrounded by like college students, like some of the ideas that I'll mention, they'll be like, we didn't even think of this. Cause it's like at the end of the day, when I first like started film, a lot of my meetings was just like 40-year-old white men. At the end, like they don't know, like they're not in touch with our generation anymore. Like it's very difficult for them to understand where we're coming from. So like I feel like for me it's always been an advantage because I can say, oh, here's another perspective that you didn't consider, maybe also consider this. And that's always been like more of a helpful thing rather than a negative thing. And obviously the ideas that come with like living with like I don't know 6 other college students is like very very beneficial because I have so many like random character ideas from like the people I meet on a daily basis that like at some point in one of my films in the future I will definitely have a character based off of that person because there's so many. I feel like college is a place where like people are coming from all over the world. Like I have international friends, I have friends like out of state, I have people who've just grown up in Berkeley itself, and like so many different backgrounds. Like some people are here purely on scholarship. Some people have gotten here because they're like athletes. Some people's dads are like business mongols, and I was like, what do you mean? I remember freshman year when people were introducing themselves to me, like somebody randomly said, yeah, like my dad owns like some big business in Singapore, and I was like, whoa, and imagine all of us in like one group, like chaos is about to ensue and you just know it, like something's gonna happen. And so I feel like it's definitely just provided me with more creative flow.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so many things we take for granted, right? I
Mm,
mean, I just like listening to stories. That's what I love about me personally. Like, what I love about film so much, just the way
yeah.
you get to kind of relate and like
Yeah.
draw lessons from it. Um, you mentioned a little bit about like being the youngest in the industry. I guess there's two different ways I can go about this, but before I say the other one, I'm curious, are you someone who's driven by competition, or do you not worry about that at all and do you just kind of like focus on yourself?
I think I'm the latter. I'm not a competitive person at all, like, and never have been. I feel I'm more of like, if my work is good and if I put 100%, it will take me where it has to take me. Like, I don't like what other people do is their business. I really don't have to be competing with them. I'm competing with myself. Like, if what I'm making is good, then I need to make sure the next thing I make is even better. If it's the same level, then I will not be happy with myself. Like, there has to be this improvement.
But you're not concerned about anyone else's, like maybe someone who's younger than you to like accelerate faster than you.
I would be happier. Somebody else figured out what I've figured out now. They're doing it earlier. Go for it. Like, I will like even support them. Like, I'm just never have been a competitive person. I don't think I ever will be. And like, if younger people are coming into the film industry, I'm happier. More stories that need to be said will be said. I feel like I maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I should. I feel like the last like 20 years, the film industry has gone, at least commercial films have gone into like a very repetitive loop about like the same action movies coming out, the same romance movies coming out, the same comedy movies coming out. We need newness. Like, we need younger people to come in, break like that cycle.
The norm.
And and so like, if younger people are coming into the film industry, I'm more than happy to welcome them. I'll help them. Like, you tell me what you need, I'm here. Like, I've experienced things. Let's see if we can make this easier for you, because I don't want you to go through the struggles I went through. Because I'm not gonna say it was easy. Like, it's been rough. There have been bad days. There have been bad weeks. There have been bad months. But at the end of the day, it's where I want to be. I love what I do. And that's what's keeping me going.
Talk to me about those experiences. I mean, we before this podcast, I know we talked a little bit about like some of the discrimination you face just for the age, your gender, like from what it sounds like in the way you say, like reflecting on like, yeah, this was a hard time. Like, what did you have to go through, and how do you think other people can avoid that?
I'll break it into like different sections because there's a lot to cover. But in terms of age, I feel like because there's so many people who are so much older than you, have so much more experience, you have to like be more assertive than I was thinking you had to be originally going in, for people to even listen to you, for people to like hear your ideas. Or like, let's say you think a scene's gonna like look different, or you can improve it somehow. They're not gonna take you seriously right off the bat, because they're like, you're 15, what do you know? Like, you're just in high school. Like, we've been doing this for the last 20 years. So I think figuring out a way to make yourself heard in that space is a big challenge. It takes a while. And then gender is something like that, I feel like, is still like prevalent in other industries as well. It's not just the film industry. Obviously things are improving. I'm not saying there's not any improvement. We're still on like level 0, but it's still a very male dominated field, which is surprising, especially like the directorial field. And I'm not saying women aren't given chances like men in like the counterpart, but I feel like sometimes it's taken very like negatively. And so there's a lot of like when I entered, there was a lot of like, oh, she got here because she knew some person, or she slept with some person to get here. You still hear those things. And like, as a teenager, hearing those things isn't the easiest thing to hear. Like, that was not something I was expecting. Or if like you're in a room and there's only guys talking, and you're trying to say something and they just don't let you talk, after a while you won't even try, is what happens. So you need to have a certain like backbone where it's like, I don't care if they don't let me try, I will speak. Like, if you're not coming into that realm with that mindset, it is very hard. Obviously that's changing. I feel like younger filmmakers, their sets are very different. Like, there's so much that's different from like, let's say a big production house with like people who like worked there for a while, because I think it's like institutional change that needs to happen. But yeah, it's been a very interesting experience, I feel like.
I'm glad you're able to share that because yeah, I
Yeah.
mean most people it goes like without say, right? Like it definitely gets swept under the rug.
Yeah.
But when you say like systematic, is it like the most like the film industry attracts more men or
I think it's, I don't know if it's more like the film industry attracts more men. I think it's more um n- not normalized, but like you see, you talk about directors, right? You talk about Christopher Nolan, you talk about Steven Spielberg, you talk about like Martin Scorsese. If you ask about female directors, there's so many wonderful female directors, so many. um Francesca Cortese, Sofia Coppola, Maria Roberts. Those are not names that everybody knows. It's not because their films aren't good. It's not because they haven't been recognized. I feel like it's just more um like they're in they're in the talks, but they're not, they don't stay for a while. Like, somebody else's film will come and they will be like the next like talk of the town. And so they kind of get like slipped. Also, I think it's this is more uh, I don't know, personal, or like if it's more like deterred. I don't know how I would like rationalize it, but like, women, when you think about in film, you think about actresses. You think about like makeup artists. You think about like people in front of the camera rather behind the camera. Like, you're not, if you think of like a sound producer, or let's say a lightman, um CGI artist, you're not thinking of women. You're thinking of men. And I feel like that narrative needs to change. Like, there are wonderful sound producers that are women that I know of, and that you probably don't even realize are in some of your favorite movies. Like, and so I feel like once that changes, you'll see more of a change. But I think that change is happening. Like, I don't think that's not happening. Um, but yeah, it's a gradual change. We're getting there.
if Asta had a switch where you could just do anything to change the industry to fix all this and make it go away, what would you do?
I feel like it needs to come with like smaller changes. Like, it can't be drastic. Like, we just have like female filmmakers, because that's also not right. Like, what I'm trying to say is not like all of a sudden the film industry is just women, because no, that's not right. I think it's more about giving them equal opportunity. Eh, like, I've experienced this personally, and I've seen it personally. That's why I'm able to speak about it. But like, like, there was this one project, I can't really say what it was for or what we were doing, but we were hiring stunt people. Males were given preference, and there were females just as strong. And it wasn't about like they needed to like look alike the actor or anything. That was not, it was just like we just needed stunt people for background stunts, right? And I think when you start seeing changes in those aspects, you will be able to see changes in larger aspects. I think also more women need to be in, I guess, power in higher levels. Like we have like a lot of women as like production assistants and like I guess like supervisor roles. Nobody's like nobody's managing director, nobody's in those roles. Like that is just not a thing, especially in big companies. Smaller companies, more independent companies, you still see that happening. I think that change also changes a lot of things. But what I will like to point out also, which will be an interesting thing for you to hear, I guess, is women in power who are currently in power, I think they need to do a better job in supporting other women trying to get there. I don't think a lot of people realize sometimes women are the ones pushing other women down. And I don't think that's being said more. I think that it's always like men being blamed, like, oh, we're not getting equal opportunity with men. They're like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Obviously, that's still very prevalent. But what I also want to bring up is like women in power being threatened by other women and them pushing women down. That's not going to help us. Like that is just not the right mindset. And I think that needs to be more talked about, not just in the film industry, just in general, because that does happen, and that gets pushed under the rug way faster than anything else.
It's crazy to me how you're able to find all these nuances. I'm sure it comes from like a lot of experience. So I love the way you draw everything out there. Yeah, it seems like a very systematic problem that builds its way from the bottom all the way to the top. And the nature where you say like they're pushing each other down, that's also an inherent thing about the film industry, right? Being so competitive, like that people just like, no matter if you're a man or woman, there's always some kind of level of like bringing each other down just so that you could get that seat, right?
Yeah, I think it also history plays a huge part of it. Because it was like, because the industry, it's called, at the end of the day, originally it was called a film fraternity.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you look at even just the history of that, it's supposed to be a very exclusive, like you think of a frat, right? And it's the members in that frat, it's very exclusive, right? So if you're called a film fraternity, it's those people and those people only within that fraternity. And so historically, if you look at it, because it's been such a like elite, we're like our own group, it takes a lot of effort to like join our group, like our business is our business, we don't let anything come out, like it's all of the toxicity stays in. And because it's been that way for such a long time, it's going to take a long time to change. Like it's not an overnight fix. Like there's a lot of mindsets that need to change in order for that to happen. And that's a lot of people, because the film industry is big. And so it's definitely not like an overnight fix. Slowly you do see the changes happening. And you do see those differences. And which is a good thing, and they're gonna continue happening, which is also a good thing. But I feel like because historically it's been such a, like, we're a tight-knit group, that acceptance will take a while. I'm glad it started. That's a very good thing, and I'm glad I'm seeing that continue with everything that's happened within the last couple of years as well. Just I feel like we've become, as like an industry, more accepting of even like outside cultures, industries outside of just Hollywood. Like I think there's been like this change in mindset where we've gone from, oh, we're just Hollywood, to we should start saying we're a film industry worldwide. So it doesn't matter if you're Hollywood or if you're like making cinema like in South Korea, in India, in like Canada, like we're a huge film community together, and we should be like doing more of a job of uplifting everyone. And so I'm like glad I'm seeing that change, but it's definitely, there's a lot of work to still get done. Yeah.
That's honestly like kind of exciting to me, like
Yeah.
it almost feels like we're in a transitioning period, and that's how we
Oh,
get
yeah.
some of these amazing films we've been seeing lately.
Yeah.
Like, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Parasite
right? That was a very big.
was
right.
the first one that really caught everybody's attention. Yeah, that was yeah.
A lot of new technology too with like cameras, right? I heard there's like now something above full frame cameras.
Yeah,
and,
I feel like the
super high
the
resolution.
tech advances every year. I like something new comes up, and I was like, great. Now we have to learn a whole new software and like figure out this whole new like framework. But it's all exciting changes, and like I'm so ready for like the 8K cameras to be like normalized, because the quality and the crispness of that camera is crazy. I'm just so excited to be like for everybody to start using those.
When you made it, right?
Oh
when
yeah, it's when I have that 8K camera in my hand. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, your stories so far have been really amazing, and honestly, I could talk for you with hours, but there are some like 3, maybe 4 rapid fire questions I wanna get through you just to get your opinion on real quick. So first one is the movie that you think changed you the most with its story.
I think Boyhood, and I would say, okay, wait, can I give 2?
Yeah.
Okay, Virgin Suicides and Boyhood. They're both one of the first movies I've watched where like the directors are big directors, the budget's not that big. It's a very like controlled budget, and it's just the storytelling that's taking the movie forward. But the messages in both those movies end up being insanely powerful, and so those two have always been an inspiration to like look back at. Yeah.
What's a movie someone who's lost in their life and can't find any purpose in it watch?
I would say Before Sunrise. Yeah.
Big marketing budget or big production budget?
Big production budget all day, every day. I will say marketing. I love the marketing teams for all movies, and they play a huge role in if the movie gains traction or not. But like at the end of the day, if your main project is not where you want it to be, even marketing won't save it. So big production budget.
CGI versus real effects.
CGI currently, real effects when I have the money for it. Like, I want to be at the level where I'm like doing Oppenheimer level movies and like actually blowing up stuff. That's not for everyone. So like currently I know where I'm at. So CGI, VFX, but like later on, hopefully actual.
And then favorite true story film or movie?
Conjuring, the entire Conjuring series. I'm such a sucker for those movies. I don't think you understand. And similarly, there's a Bollywood movie called Bhool Bhulaiya, also based off of like a true place. And so those two, they're both like similar horror-y. Yeah, love them.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to go into our closing tradition of the podcast. So the last guest asks the next guest a question without knowing who it's from. The question that's been left for you is, who are you trying to be and what are you trying to do before you graduate college?
What I'm trying to leave college with, like before I graduate, is having the same amount of curiosity and like passion and energy that I came college with. Like I want to like still stay that same person even when I'm graduating. Like that's the person I'm trying to be, like get to even when I go to graduation. And then who I'm trying to be, I'm just trying to be a more, I feel like, calmer person, like in general, because I feel like, again, with the whole nature of like I hyper focus on things, I feel like because of that I'm always like stressed out. I'm like, I need to get this done and I need to get this done, and so I just need to be a bit more calm and like composed. Yeah.
Asta, everyone, thank you so much for hopping on today's podcast, voicing your experiences within the film industry, absolutely killing it within your own career. You're a huge inspiration for a lot of people, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. I think your creative process is definitely something that a lot of people can learn from, including myself, and I'm definitely going to start applying that. So, Asta, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.